All right, today we are going to be talking about slope. Now, slope is simply the steepness of a line. So if you think some real life examples, for example, in an area where there's a lot of snow, the slope of the roof, they call it the pitch, but the slope of the roof would be steeper than somewhere where it is more tropical, let's say, because the snow needs to slide off of the roof. So the slope would be very steep. If you think skiing in real life, you have a bunny hill, and a bunny hill is called that because it is a very, very gradual slope compared to like a black diamond hill, which is a very steep slope. Now, in graphing, we have slope as well. And the slope of a line is simply the steepness of a line. The symbol we use for slope is a lowercase cursive m. And slope is simply a ratio. And that ratio is known in a couple different ways. One of those ways is what we like to refer to as rise over run. Now, stop and think for a second. On a coordinate plane, on a graph, which one is the rise? And that would be your y values. Your y values would be your rise. Your run would be your x values because that's the horizontal axis. The y values are the vertical axis. So rise is y's, run is x's. So a second way that we refer to it is just simply change in y over change in x. Now, remember we talked the other day that if I'm wanting to find the change in two numbers, that implies subtraction. So change in y over change in x. The third way is the formula. The formula that we use to find slope given two ordered pairs is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now, what does that sub mean? That's just simply a subscript. It is the y value from the second ordered pair minus the y value from the first ordered pair. Then you start with the x value from the second ordered pair that you picked the y value first from. You start with that one and you take that x value minus the x value from the first ordered pair. Okay, so let's talk about how to do these then. So we've got two different situations going on. One of them is if I give you a graph. Okay, so if you're given a graph, what you simply do is you count from one point to the other. Okay, so first the rise, so you count up or down, put that in the numerator. Then you count the run, left or right, put that in the denominator, and then remember to simplify. Now, an easy way to do this is the way I do this, is I start with the point furthest on the left, because then I am always moving to the right, which is a positive direction. So personally, I always start with the point on the left, count up or down to the other point, and then count to the right. Now, it will work the other way, but you might have a situation where you have a negative in the numerator, a negative in the denominator. So just remember to simplify those, and you can do it either way. The second way that we do this is, what if I'm given a set of ordered pairs, or if I'm given a table of ordered pairs? Well, what you simply do then is you subtract the two y's, put that in the numerator, then you subtract the two x's, put that in the denominator, and once again, remember to simplify. Now, there are four different types of slope. We have a positive slope, which means that we would end up getting a positive fraction. Okay? So our rise is positive, our run is positive, or our rise is negative and our run is negative. Because remember, a negative divided by a negative is also a positive. Now, what that simply does is, an easy way to kind of think of that is, if you look at the graph would go up from left to right. So if you kind of look at it, it looks like something like you would want your bank account to do, which would go up from left to right. The second form of slope we have is a negative slope. Okay, negative slope goes down from left to right. What that means is that either your rise is going to be negative and your run positive, or the flip of that, your rise be positive and your run negative. So they have to be different signs, okay, to get a negative slope. The third possibility that we could get is what is called a zero slope. A zero slope, if you think about that, in order to get a zero slope, what you would have is you would have 0 over some number. Now, what that means then is you have 0 rise, but you do have run, which is going to give us a horizontal line. Okay? The fourth kind that we have is what is called an undefined slope. So what that looks like in our ratio is a number over 0. The reason it is undefined is because we cannot divide by 0. That is an undefined operation. Because if you think of division, 6 divided by 2. So if you have 6 things, you cut it into 2 groups. How many does each group get? And that would be, the answer would be 3. Well, if this was the case, 6 divided by 0. So you have 6 things, and you're not even going to make one group. How many? Well, we can't determine that then. So that is an undefined operation. So if you think about that, then it has rise, but it has no run, and that will be a vertical line. Okay, so those are our 4 types of slope to keep in mind as to what is going on here. All right, so let's give it a shot. So you notice here on the first one, it says find the slope given the ordered pair. So what I'm going to use is I am going to use our formula. So y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. That's our formula we're going to use. So slope equals, remember our ordered pair, we go xy, we go xy. So I'm going to start with the 12, and I'm going to go 12 minus 3. Since I started with the 12, I have to start with the 8 first, and I would go 8 minus 2. So 12 minus 3 is 9. 8 minus 2 is 6. Now I notice that 9 over 6 can be simplified. So I'm going to divide them both by 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And that would be my slope. Do not change that to a decimal, and do not change that to a mixed number. You're going to leave it as an improper if that's what happens. Okay, let's try the second one here. So on the second one, we start in, and we're going to go xy, xy. So I start in, I'm just going to start with the negative 8. So negative 8 minus 4 over, since I started with the negative 8, I have to start with the 6 first, minus negative 3. So negative 8 minus 4 gets me a negative 12. 6 minus a negative 3, remember subtracting a negative is like adding a positive. So 6 plus 3, which is 9. So that can be divided by 3. So that would get me a negative 4 thirds. And that would be my slope simplified. Okay, let's try number 3. So we start in. We come in. We have our x and our y. And we have our x and we have the y. And I'm just going to start with the 4. So I'm going to go 4 minus negative 2 over negative 6 minus negative 8. So 4 minus negative 2 becomes 4 plus a positive 2, which is 6. Negative 6 minus negative 8 becomes 6 plus 8. So that is a 2. 6 divided by 2 can be simplified into just a 3. So the slope of those 2 points would be a 3, a line containing those 2 points. Okay, let's try the next one here. So on this next one, we come in and we say, okay, I've got x, y, x, y. And I'm just going to start with the negative 20. So negative 20 minus negative 5 over negative 7 minus 3. So I start in and I say, okay, plus a positive. So negative 20 plus a positive 5 would get me a negative 15. Negative 7 minus 3, that's going to get me a negative 10. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. And then 15 over 10 can be divided by a 5. And I end up with positive 3/2 for my slope. Okay, number 5. So I come in here and I say, okay, here's my x, my y, x and y. So I start in and I go 7 minus 7 over 9 minus 5. Well, 7 minus 7 is 0. 9 minus 5 is 4. What is 0 divided by 4? And the answer would be 0. So my slope of those 2 points, of the line containing those 2 points, would be 0. My last one here of this type of problem, when I come in, I've got x, y. I've got x, y. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to say 9 minus 4 over negative 3 minus negative 3, which becomes plus a positive. 9 minus 4 is 5. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0, which that is going to be undefined slope. So the line containing those 2 points would be an undefined slope. Okay, so that's how we do it if we are given ordered pairs. A couple things, couple common mistakes. People will put an x with a y. They'll do the x's first compared to the y's first. Remember, when you're doing slope, change in y, rise over run. So change in y over change in x's. So y's are on top, x's are on the bottom. Also, make sure you simplify your fractions. Okay, now let's try it doing a table. It's going to look very similar to what we just did. The only difference here is you get to pick which points you do. It doesn't matter which 2 points you're going to pick. They should give you the exact same slope. So I'm just going to take this one and I'm going to take this one. So I'm going to start off with my y's. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to say 1 minus negative 3. So y minus y over 2 minus 0. Since I did the 1 first, I also have to do the 2 first. So now 1 minus negative 3 becomes 1 plus a positive 3, which is 4. 2 minus 0 is 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So my slope would be a 2. On the second one here, we pick any 2. I'm going to pick this one, and let's just do that one. Now, you'll notice I keep picking the one with the 0, and the reason I do that is it just makes the math a little easier. So here I'm going to start with the negative 4, so I'm going to go negative 4 minus negative 2. And then that would be 3 minus 0. So negative 4 minus negative 2 becomes negative 4 plus a positive 2, which is negative 2. 3 minus 0 is 3. That cannot be simplified, so that would be my slope, negative 2/3. You'll notice the process is the same as what we did up top. The only difference is you get to pick which 2 points you want to do. Okay, let's try number 9 here. So we start in. First thing we got to do is pick 2. Let's do this one here and this one. Doesn't matter. So I'm going to start here with the negative 5. So negative 5 minus negative 5. And then I come up, since I did the negative 5 first, I need to do the negative 3 minus negative 6. So remember, minusing a negative turns to adding a positive. Negative 5 plus 5, that's 0. Negative 3 plus 6, that's going to turn into a 3, which is going to give me a slope of 0. And then the last one that we do here, I'm going to pick 2 again. Let's just do this one and this one. So I start in, I'm going to do the negative 1 first here. So I'm going to go negative 1 minus negative 2. And since I did the negative 1 first, I do that 3 over it. 3 minus 3 becomes plus a positive. Negative 1 plus a positive 2 is 1. 3 minus 3 is 0, which is going to tell me undefined. So that is an undefined slope. Okay, so that's how we do it if we're given a t-table. That's how we're do it if we're given a table. The next thing I want to do is just go over how would we do it if we're given a graph, a picture of a graph of a line, and we need to find the slope. So we're going to start off with the slope of A. So what I'm going to do is I see here's my A. I have my 2 points. Here's one point, here's the other point. So what I'm going to do is, personally, I like to start with the leftmost point and count to the one on the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply go 1, 2, 3. So my rise, I went down, so that would be a -3. Now I'm going to go to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, -3 over 6, which is going to simplify. If I divide them both by 3, I would end up with -1/2 for that slope. Okay, let's try the next one. So for B, I find B here. Here's 1 point. Here's my second point. So I start with the leftmost. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I went up 4, so that's positive. And then I'm going to go 1, 2. I went to the right 2. That's also positive. So 4 divided by 2 gives me a slope of 2. Okay, let's try another one. For C. So I find C. Here's C. Now, here's my points. I have this point and this point. So what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to start here and I'm going to count down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I went down 5. I'm not going to go left or right any because it's not. So -5 over 0, that is an undefined slope. Okay, let's do D now. So we're going to come in here. We're going to find D. So I start with D. I find where D is at. Here's 1 point for D. Here's the other point for D. Start at the leftmost. So I'm going to go 1, 2 down. I went down 2. And then I count across. 1, 2, 3, 4. I moved to the right 4. So since I moved down 2, right 4, 2 fourths simplifies to 1/2. So that would be a -1/2. And the last one here, let's do E. So for E, here's the line, here's 1 point, here's the other point. You'll notice there is no up and down to get to the other point. So if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0 over 5 is a slope of 0. And that's how we do that if we have a graph and we want to find the slope.